simple example. I have given you a deck of cards, okay, and I asked you to remove the first card at random. So what is the task given? From a set of cards, you are expected to remove the first card. Now you can simply grab a card from a deck, that is very first card will be taken out. So in this case, you don't need to go through entire deck of card, right? So if the problem is like remove first card from the deck, so we really don't bother whether there are 100 cards in a deck or whether there are thousands cards in a deck. No, because what is the problem? Problem is very straightforward, that is remove first card. So in this case, we say that this particular searching operation takes big O of 1, that is constant time. Okay, so this is called as constant time lookup. Fine. Now, okay, I will tell you some more examples. Now consider that you want to access some specific element from the array. Now, in order to search specific element from array, what we give as an input? We give index of that particular number as an input. So accessing any element in array, it will always take constant time, as only one operation has to be performed to find that particular element from the array, isn't it? So because you are locating for that particular index only, so it will be also executed in constant time. In similar manner, if you want to find the minimum value, that too from sorted array. Now you know, if array is sorted, the minimum value is always present at first position. So again here the time complexity is what? Big O of 1. But consider the reverse thing. If your array is not sorted, okay, if your array is not sorted, whether it will take constant time operation? No. Why? Because here you need to scan each and every element in the array in order to find out the smallest element. Hence it is not example of constant time operation, rather it is example of linear time operation which take big O of n time. So that I will explain you later. So if the number of elements, they are known in advance and they don't change, okay, they doesn't change, then we say that such type of algorithm can be executed in a constant unit time. So what are the examples discussed? From sorted array, you are trying to find minimum element. So we know that it is present at the first position. Second example I told you about, if you want to access a specific element in the array. So of course, index of that particular element will be given. So in this case also, this particular time operation takes a constant time, that is big O of 1. So despite the name constant time, running time does not have to be independent of the problem size. But running time will depend on what? It will depend on what is upper bound for the running time. Okay, and it has to be bounded independently of the problem size. Okay, now the second example is which I have quoted here is exchange the values of A and B. Okay, so if necessary, A less than equal to B is called constant time, even though the time may depend on whether or not this particular condition is true. That is, whether A is really less than or equal to B. However, there is some constant t such that the time required is always at most t. So even such type of condition checking operation can be said to be executed in a constant time, that is big O of 1. So to summarize, an algorithm is said to have a constant time when it is not dependent on the input data. So it is very straightforward. If your algorithm is not depending on any input data, then we say that it is taking constant time. So no matter what is the size of input data, running time will always remain same. Okay, do you remember example of cards? If there are say 1000 cards or 100 cards or 10 cards, we really don't bother, because what is the task given? The task given is to take out the first card from the deck. So we don't care about how many cards are given as an input. As we are taking only first card out, complexity will always remain constant, that is big O of 1. So here I have also given one example. If value of A is greater than B, then return true. Else what it will return? Else it will return false. So operations like this, wherein you are checking the conditions, they are also said to be executed in a constant unit time, that is big O of 1. So I hope now you have understood what is constant time complexity, big O of 1. What is that? Algorithm is said to have a constant time when it is not dependent on the input data. No matter what is the size of input data, running time will always remain same, that is big O of 1. So that is very simple type, constant time complexity. Okay. Now this is one Python code which I have written. Of what this particular code is doing. This code is always returning first element given in the array. So if 10 elements is given as input, or if 100 elements are given as input, or if even 1000 elements are given as an input, what this code is doing, this code is always returning the element which is present at very first position, that is return data of 0. So independently of the input data size, it will always have the same running time, because what it is doing, it is only getting the first value from the list. Okay, so algorithm with constant time complexity, they are excellent. Why? Because here we really don't need to worry about what is the input size, and that's all. This is again one more example wherein you are checking some condition. If that condition is true, then perform something. If that condition is false, then again perform something. Okay, then again we really don't bother, because for I is equal to 1 to 100, j is equal to 1 to 200, perform some basic operation which runs in a constant time. So with these many examples, what is constant type of complexity, I hope that is clear. Now let us move to the second type of complexity, that is big O of n, linear time complexity. Already we have seen some examples of for loop wherein they are taking a big O of n time for executing the statement written inside the loop. Now what does this big O of n means? It means linear time complexity. So linear time complexity describes an algorithm or program whose complexity will grow in direct proportion to the size of the input data. So if I give 10 numbers as an input, the statement written inside loop will be executed for 10 number of time. Okay, so there is one thumb rule. It is best to try and keep your functions running below or within this range of time complexity. But we know that always that is not possible, because sometimes we have nested for loop. Sometimes our index is moving like I equal to I into 2. So therein some different types of time complexity will come into picture. So what is this big O of n then? In other words, we can simply say that larger the input, greater the amount of time it will take to perform your function or to execute your function. So it is very simple. To summarize, an algorithm is said to have a linear time complexity when the running time increases at most linearly with the size of input. Okay, so I told if n is 100, then your algorithmic statements, they will be executed for 100 number of time. So it is directly proportional to the size of input, linearly proportional to the size of input. So this is the best possible time complexity when you are examining each of the values which are given as an input to the algorithm. See, very simple example I have put forth on the slide. There is one for loop. So for value in some data, you are printing the values. So what we are doing here, we are accessing each element of the array. As we are visiting each element of the array, complexity will be linear, no? It will be what? Big O of n. So very simple, and many times when you are writing the program, you will come across the loop, you will come across the code which is generating big O of n as a time complexity. So very simple type. First was big O of 1, that is constant, and second is big O of n, that is linear time complexity. Now let us come to third type of time complexity, that is what? Logarithmic time complexity. So an big O of log n algorithm, they are considered as highly efficient. Why? Because we have seen one for loop wherein I was going from 0 to n, and our I was incrementing by I equal to I into 2. Okay, so here ratio of number of operations to the size of input decreases and tends to 0 when n increases. So what happens in logarithmic time complexities? Size of input is large, but number of times your statements are executing is less as compared to the size of input. So we have seen that when n equal to 8, your loop was executing only 3 number of times. When n was equal to 10, your loop was executing only 4 number of times. So why they are called as highly efficient? Because even though size of input is large, your statements which you have written inside your loop, they will be executed for less number of time as compared to the input size. Okay, so an algorithm that must access all the element of its input cannot take logarithmic time complexity. Okay, so where applications wherein you need to visit each of the element in the input, they cannot take logarithmic time. Visiting every element in the input, we know that which type of time complexity it is big of n. Okay, so you need to be very careful when you are about to use logarithmic time complexities. What happens in logarithmic time complexities? Size of input is large, but number of times your code is executing is less as compared to the input size. So to summarize, I have written an algorithm is said to have a logarithmic time complexity when it reduces the size of input data in each step. Okay, when it reduces size of input data in each step, then it is to be considered as what? Logarithmic time complexity. So logarithmic time complexity refers to an algorithm that runs in proportionally to the logarithm of the input size. So yesterday we have also proven that how it is reducing and whether it is really equal to log n value to the base 2. Okay, so for example, same for loop we have written on the slide, that is when for I equal to 1, I is less than array dot length, that is n actually, and I equal to I into 2. So herein what is happening, your algorithm do something, these many lines, how many times they will be executed? They will be executed for log n times, where what is n? N is length of array. N is length of array. So just remember that in logarithmic time complexity, size of input is larger, but number of times your loop is actually executing is equal to log n to the base 2 value. Okay. So now let us come to the fourth type of time complexity, that is quadratic time, big O of n square. This also we have discussed, and this generally happens when you have two for loops nested in between each other. Okay, so an algorithm is said to have a quadratic time complexity when it needs to perform a linear time operation for each value in the input data. We know that quadratic time complexity represents algorithm whose performance is directly proportional to the squared size of the input data set. What does it mean? It simply means that when you have two for loops nested in between each other, of course it will take big O of n square time complexity. So you can see on the screen that for x in data, do something. Okay. And then again for y in data, you are printing value of x and y. Yesterday we have seen in detail how these nested for loops executed, and we know that this print xy statements, how many times that particular statement will be executed? It will be executed for n square number of times. So as this is n square, order of equation becomes n square, and we say that complexity of this particular code is big O of n square. So very simple quadratic time complexity. Now let us move to the next one, that is exponential time complexity. So whatever examples we have seen so far, we have not came across exponential time complexities which are in the form of big O of 2 power n. So an algorithm is said to have an exponential time complexity when the growth doubles with each addition to the input data set. So this is exactly reverse of what we are doing in logarithmic time complexity. In logarithmic time complexity, what happens? Size of input is larger, but how many times your statement is executing is smaller than the input size. Here it is in the reverse manner. Okay, so here how your function doubles, the growth doubles with each addition to the input data set. And very simple example of this is what? Fibonacci series. Fibonacci series. Fibonacci series we have discussed earlier. So what happens in Fibonacci series? You can see the pseudocode of Fibonacci series on the screen. So if value of n is less than equal to 1, you return n. Okay. Otherwise, if value is greater than 1, then what we return? Fibonacci of n minus 1 plus Fibonacci of n minus 2. So here you can see that on any given input n, how your function is growing. Your function is growing in two different ways. So first it will pass a value n minus 1 to the function, and the value written by this n minus 1 function will be added with again another function to which value n minus 2 was passed. So let us take a look on a recursion tree. So you know that this is recursion. Why? Because function is calling itself on two different values, n minus 1 and n minus 2. So if you consider we have passed a value 4. Okay, so let us consider what? We have passed a value 4 to this Fibonacci function. Then how this particular function will execute? How this particular function will execute? What you have given as a n here, you have given n value as a 4. So first of all, you need to know that left hand side is for n minus 1 and right hand side is for n minus 2. So n minus 1 is what? 3. 4 minus 1, what is that? 3. 4 minus 2, what is that? It is 2. Okay, again left hand side n minus 1, what is current value of n? 3. So 3 minus 1 is 2, and again on the right hand side 3 minus 2, that is 1. Now why these leaf nodes are shown as a green? Because you can see here, if n is greater than if n is less than or equal to 1, then you are expected to return n, and that's why what we have written in red color here, we have written 1. But for the node left node 2, your Fibonacci function will be called again. Why? Because 2 is not equal to 1. So on the left hand side it will be called for n minus 1. So 2 minus 1, 1, and on the right hand side it will be called for n minus 2 value. So 2 minus 2 evaluates to 0. And you know that when this particular value becomes 0, at that time we are expected to return 0 value. So your recursion actually stops. You just observe these green nodes. Either they are 0 or they are 1. So when n reaches to 0, you are returning 0. And when n reaches to 1, you are returning 1. So you see the input size was 4. But see the way how this tree has grown. How this tree has grown? It has grown in a exponential manner. So such type of algorithms, they are supposed to take a time complexity which comes in exponential format of big O of 2 raised to n. So this is true when you are working on a problem like Fibonacci series problem. Okay, and then the next type of time complexity which we need to say is big O of n log n. Big O of log n we have already seen, but that is not only log n, it is what? N into log n. An algorithm is said to have a quasi-linear time complexity when each operation in the input data have a logarithm time complexity. What we have written? Not only logarithm, but what? Each operation in the input data will have logarithm time complexity. Right now you have not studied any sorting algorithm, but you know merge sort and heap sort, these are very famous sorting algorithms which takes this particular time complexity, that is big O of n into log n. Now what we are doing there, just to describe what is a quasi-linear time complexity, I will tell you in short. In merge sort, what happens? Consider that you have given an input of 10 numbers as an input. Okay, so input array is of size 10 and you are asked to sort those numbers using merge sort. So what we do in that, this list of 10 numbers is divided into 2. So 5 numbers in one list and 5 numbers in other list. Okay, so we will get 2 sublists. Now what happens in the next iteration? These 2 sublists, they are again divided into 2 sublists. So in all now how many sublists you will get? 4 sublists. Are you getting what I am saying? So in every iteration your list is getting splitted. So that's why This type of algorithms, they take quasi-linear time complexity, which is represented in the terms of big O of n log n. So time being, just remember what is quasi-linear? It is big O of n log n. So this will be more clear when you will learn merge sort. Okay. And then let us come to the last type of complexity, which is factorial complexity, which is represented by big O of n factorial. And very simple example is there on the screen. When we say that algorithm is having factorial complexity, an algorithm is said to have a factorial time complexity when it grows in a factorial manner based on the size of input data. You know very well how 2 factorial is calculated. 2 into 1 equal to 2. How 3 factorial is calculated? 3 into 2 into 1, that is 6. How 4 factorial is calculated? 4 into 3 into 2 into 1, and so on. So algorithms like this, they are said to have a factorial time complexity, because the number of times your instruction is executed increments in a factorial manner. That's why this algorithm, they are said to have factorial type of complexities. Okay. Now just to revise, how many types of complexities we have seen? First of all, we have seen constant time complexity. What is constant time complexity? If it is constant time complexity, we don't bother what is the input size and how many times specific operation has to be repeated. So in spite of any input size, it will take only one operation. So that's why we say that it is constant time complexity. After constant time complexity, there comes big O of n. That is called as linear time complexity. What is linear time complexity? What happens in linear time complexity? Number of times instruction is executing, it is linearly proportional or directly proportional to the size of input. In very simple way, we can say that whenever we use any for loop, as in for loop, what happens? Every element is visited at least once. That's why it depends on what? It depends on how many numbers you have given as a input data. So those many times your loop will be executed. That's why this type of time complexity is called as big O of n. Okay. Then third is logarithmic time complexities, wherein what happens? Number of operations to the size of input will decrease, right? So if your size of n is larger, number of times your instruction is executed is smaller as compared to the value of n. That's why we say that they are taking logarithmic time complexity, which is represented by big O of log n. Okay. Then the next type of time complexity is quadratic time complexity, big O of n square. You know that whenever we go for two for loops nested in each other, those types of loops are taking quadratic time complexity. Then the next one is exponential time complexity. This is exactly opposite to logarithmic time complexity. Herein what happens? The input size is smaller, but the way how your statement is executing, okay, it doubles the rate. And that's why we can see in the recursion tree how many times that particular recursive function was called. And then that's the reason why this type of complexities are called as big O of 2 to the power n, because they really increase in exponential manner. That's why the functions, they are said to have big O of 2 power n time complexity. Then we can have quasi-linear time complexity. What is that? Big O of n log n. And very famous sorting techniques like merge sort, Tim sort, heap sort, they are using this quasi-linear time complexity. So detailed discussion on merge sort we will do later whenever we will see the sorting unit in the syllabus. Factorial time complexities, again, they are represented by big O of n factorial. Why? Because they increase in a factorial manner. So we know how factorial of each of the number is calculated. So that's all about types of time complexity. Now just to summarize, I have taken some function. How might you describe this function? Now see, very simple examples I have kept there on the slide. What is the first function? First function is f of x is equal to 3x plus 5. Now this is not constant. This is not taking constant time. Why? Because it depends on the input, no? what is the value of x that user is giving? It depends on the input. So 3 into that particular value will be added with a constant 5 and then your result will be generated. That's why this is not constant time complexity, but this is a type of linear time complexity. Okay. Then the next example, 4x square plus 15x plus 90. Now, whenever questions like this, whenever equations like this are given, what you are expected to remember? What is the highest order of the equation? What is order of the equation? It is the highest exponent that your variable is raised to. So if you observe this particular equation, what is the highest exponent of x? It is 2. And we know that then such type of equations, they take time complexity of big O of n square, which is called as what? Quadratic time complexity. So type of this particular function complexity will belong to quadratic type. Okay. Then what is next? 10x cube minus 30. Again, look at the exponent value. What is that? 3. So this type of complexity will belong to which group? It will belong to what? Cubic type of complexity. Then next, look at the function f of x, how it is evaluated? Log of x plus 30. So again, this is which type of complexity it is reflecting to? It is reflecting to logarithmic type of time complexity. And see the last function f of x, it is 2 to the power 3x plus 3. As it is 2 to the power something, this must belong to exponential type of time complexity. Understood this? Understood up to this?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Very
Yes, ma'am.
simple. Stop the recording. Somebody please stop the recording so that we can have question answer session.